We hope that this will encourage you. Christianity growing in Africa, and we rejoice at that when anybody gets saved, but because, as you stated, sir, 9 out of 10 Christians don't have a Bible. I could go to Africa and preach just about any wacky thing in the world, and how would they know the difference? They wouldn't know the difference. And that, to me, explains why so many of these, well, these preachers who are profiting from people are able to get away with so much of this. I mean, there was a pastor who was having his congregation, I've seen the video, drink gasoline. It was somehow to purify the, and it was just in a big church, and people are applauding, and we've heard about people actually dying because a pastor was stepping on top of somebody who had some sort of like stomach illness, so stepped on it, and then the person ended up having some sort of hemorrhage and dying. So we hear this mixture of stories, and when you said 9 out of 10 people don't have a Bible, it's like, well, now that makes sense. Because anybody with a Bible would go home and go, I don't think we should be drinking gasoline, Pastor, right? All right, so that is what Bible League International does, bringing Bibles to places like Africa. Would like to invite you to join them in their effort to do so. 1-844-YES-WORD, 844-YES-WORD, or visit wretched.org/Bible. $5 a Bible sent to Africa, which is no small trek. Do you print them there, or do you print them in the States?
We print them overseas, Todd. We've been able to sort of navigate that process of saving on printing cost and shipping and those sorts
getting
of
it
things.
into containers,
that
isn't cheap to bring it over. So you use printers over there.
And Bibles in the languages of what? The receiver. Because inevitably when we talk about these sorts of things, what do people do? Well, they've got big hearts. They rush down here, right, with a box of Bibles that have been sitting in the basement or the attic. Hey, I've got these Bibles, they're unused.
Right.
Here's the problem. If you speak Swahili or Portuguese or Bimba, right? Yeah, an English Bible does you no good. So God's allowed Bible League to be embedded in places like Africa. We've been doing this for 80 years, right? 2018 marks our 80th anniversary. And so that part of it's done. The heavy lifting's done, if you will. We're just simply praying that the other part of the infrastructure comes together, and that's your wonderful audience, Todd, becoming Bible senders.
This, to me, is just crucial, because as we look at the history of the church, without the Word, chaos ensues, bad teaching ensues. But it's the Word, when we return to the Word, that is when people recognize, as Bereans, this practice isn't correct. So this to me is evangelistic and crucial. Now, I want to, just for a moment, talk to you about the syncretism that you had mentioned earlier. How does witchcraft and Christianity go together? How does that work?
Let me tell you, you know, the stories you talk about that are so sensational, right? We have to corroborate this. Like, did that really happen? Right? Okay. Those stories sell, right? Doesn't the world love to hear that kind of stuff? That you're saying Christianity is growing fastest in Africa, and yet that's the result? Right. Let me tell you a story of how the gospel is gripping hearts. Okay, let me take your audience to Madagascar, Africa, the island nation of Madagascar. Right, we know more about it because DreamWorks made all these movies, right?
Otherwise, nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Woman by the name of Lally was the village witch doctor. Very, very small, remote rainforest in Madagascar, Africa. Right, this woman's legacy to this point had been that she had misled many through the use of witchcraft. Right, so families would come to her. They would seek safety from evil spirits. They would need direction for their lives, right? That was her story.
Maybe
at that point. Healing, those sorts of things, right? Her husband died. She had children. Things got rough for her. She prostituted herself. She conceived 2 children with men she didn't know. I mean, again, this was her story at that point. This woman named Lally in Madagascar. A man by the name of Hobie comes to town. Who's Hobie? He's a former village witch doctor, right? God gripped his heart about 5 years ago. He received theological training, got a Bible in the Malagasy language, used it to make much of God. How so? Well, came to this rainforest village, presented Lally with the gospel, showed her the beauty of the gospel, showed her the folly of witchcraft. I can tell you, she came through Bible League's discipleship program, made a profession of faith in Christ, was baptized. She got a Bible in the Malagasy language, all right? The story doesn't end there, though. Here's what she did. She read the account of Zacchaeus in Luke 19. You know the story. Jesus coming into Jericho. He sees Zacchaeus. Hey, come down from that tree, right? I'm coming to your house today, right? Story goes on to say what? In grateful response for salvation, what's he do? He endeavors to make things right with those that he deceived as a tax collector. Lally was intrigued by this. She knew what she had to do. She went to dozens of families that she misled through witchcraft over the years, and she pleaded with them to follow Jesus. And Todd, today about 250 people, entire families, have come to place their faith in Jesus Christ as a result of Lally having this sense of urgency, an intolerable burden to come to her remote rainforest village in Madagascar, Africa. Now let me tell you, there is a cry for Bibles in the Malagasy language in this village. You know why? Not simply so they can grow in the grace and knowledge of Jesus, but the believers there have a burden to take the gospel to the next village. It's a 2-day walk, Todd. And the next village is a 2-day walk from that remote rainforest village in Madagascar. Is that the type of story you're going to see on the front page of your morning paper?
Probably
not. Really not. It's the sensational stories that we talked about, right?
Right.
And we've heard those. I've heard those. You've heard those. This is what's happening in Africa right now. This is why it's a part of the world where Christianity is growing fastest, right? The need is for the Word, right? We want to see people grow in the grace and knowledge of Jesus and not be guilty of syncretism. So God is working through people like Hobie and Lally. He's building His church. Jesus said, I'm building my church, and He's doing it through people like I just mentioned. And Todd, we get to be a part of this. Bible League's been a part of this for 80 years, and I can tell you, I could sit here all day and tell you stories of God, how God is gripping the hearts of His redeemed people all over the world. Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, Europe, other parts of the world. These are the stories we love to tell. That's why this time is so valuable.
And so encouraging. Wretched.org/Bible to join that great work.